The fluorescent lights above the kitchen flickered with their usual tired rhythm as I scrubbed at a wine stain that had already set into the white tablecloth. My fingers were raw, pruned from hours submerged in scalding water and harsh detergent. The smell of bleach mixed with leftover garlic and olive oil clung to my uniform. A black button-down that had seen better days paired with slacks that were starting to fray at the hems. I was invisible here at Luciano's. Just another face in the background, someone who cleared plates and refilled water glasses, while the wealthy patrons discussed business deals and extramarital affairs in hushed wine-soaked voices. It was nearly midnight on a Thursday, and my feet throbbed inside my worn sneakers. I had been on shift since 3 o'clock in the afternoon, covering for Maria, who had called in sick for the 3rd time this week. Again, the tip jar felt lighter than usual in my apron pocket, barely enough to cover the electric bill that was already 2 weeks overdue. I pressed my palm against the small of my back, trying to work out the knot that had formed there, and glanced through the circular window that separated the kitchen from the main dining room. Only one table remained occupied. Table 7. The corner booth with the leather seats and the view of the city lights sprawling beyond the tinted windows. I had been specifically told by Marco, our head waiter, not to approach that table. Someone else would handle it. Someone always handled the VIP sections. The tables where men in $1,000 suits sat with their backs to the wall and their eyes on every entrance and exit. But Marco had left 20 minutes ago. So had Jeppy, our other experienced server. The chef had already begun shutting down the kitchen, the clanging of pots and pans echoing through the space like a countdown to freedom. I wanted nothing more than to clock out, walk the 6 blocks to my studio apartment, and collapse into bed without even bothering to shower. I pushed through the swinging door, the tray of cleaned silverware balanced against my hip. The dining room felt different at this hour, quieter, more intimate. The candlelight cast long shadows across the walls, and the soft jazz that had been playing all evening had shifted to something slower, more melancholic, a saxophone weeping through invisible speakers. I tried not to look at table 7 as I began my closing routine, but it was impossible not to notice them. 3 men, all dressed in dark suits that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. They sat in a configuration I recognized from movies, 2 facing the entrance, one with his back to the wall. That one commanded the space without moving. Even from across the room, I could feel the weight of his presence, the way the air seemed denser around him. I busied myself with straightening chairs, collecting forgotten napkins, anything to avoid drawing attention. My manager, Vincent, had been explicit during my first week. You see the men at table 7, you pretend you do not. You hear conversations, you forget them immediately. You understand? I had understood. I needed this job too desperately to ask questions. The sound of a chair scraping against marble made me freeze. I glanced up involuntarily and immediately regretted it. He was standing. The man who had been sitting with his back to the wall had risen from his seat, and I realized with uncomfortable clarity that I had been wrong about the power dynamic. The 2 men facing the entrance were not his equals. They were his shadows, his guards, and he was looking directly at me. My heart stuttered in my chest. I dropped my gaze immediately, focusing on the napkin in my hands as if it were the most fascinating object I had ever encountered. Maybe if I did not make eye contact, he would forget I existed. Maybe I could just finish cleaning and slip away into the kitchen, out the back door, into the relative safety of the night. Excuse me. The voice cut through the jazz music like a blade through silk, smooth, controlled, and absolutely impossible to ignore. It carried an accent I could not quite place. Something European that had been softened by years in America, but never fully erased. I felt it more than heard it. A vibration that traveled down my spine and settled somewhere in my stomach. I looked up slowly, my fingers tightening around the napkin. He had taken several steps toward me, and I could see him clearly now in the candlelight. Tall, over 6 feet easily, with dark hair that was precisely styled in a way that probably required a barber who charged more per hour than I made in a day. His suit was charcoal gray, fitted perfectly to broad shoulders that tapered to a narrow waist. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the dim lighting. Eyes that were currently fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to take a step backward. I did not. Something in his stance suggested that running would be the wrong move entirely. "I'm sorry, sir," I managed, my voice coming out smaller than I had intended. "We're closing. The kitchen is all ready. I can see that." He moved closer, each step deliberate and unhurried. He smelled expensive. Not cologne exactly, but something more subtle. Leather and smoke and something sharp like winter air. "You're alone." It was not a question. It was an observation, and somehow that made it worse. "The other staff had to leave early," I said, which was partially true. I did not mention that I had volunteered to stay, desperate for the extra hour on my time card. But I can get the bill prepared for you right away if you... Where are the others? I blinked, confused. Sir, the other servers, the manager, where did they go? He was close enough now that I had to tilt my head back slightly to maintain eye contact. I could see a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, a small imperfection in an otherwise flawless exterior. They had other obligations. Family things. The lie felt transparent on my tongue. I offered to close up. I do not mind staying late. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or recognition of my obvious falsehood. His lips curved into the barest suggestion of a smile, and I noticed how the expression did not quite reach his eyes. Those remained calculating, assessing me in a way that made me feel like I was being inventoried. What's your name? The question caught me off guard. Men like him did not ask servers for their names. They snapped fingers and expected service to materialize. They left cash on tables without making eye contact. They certainly did not stand in empty restaurants at midnight asking personal questions. Emma? I said quietly, then added unnecessarily. Emma Morelli, his eyebrow, the one with the scar, lifted slightly. Italian? My grandfather. I never met him. I do not know why I offered that information. Maybe because the silence between us felt too heavy, too loaded with something I did not understand. He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving my face. You work here often, Emma Morelli? 6 days a week, double shifts when I can get them. And you're here alone at midnight in this neighborhood. Again, not a question. An observation that carried within it a judgment I could not quite identify. I lifted my chin slightly, feeling a spark of defiance cut through my anxiety. I need the work, and I can take care of myself. The almost smile returned. Can you? Before I could formulate a response, one of his guards, the one with the crooked nose and the scar across his knuckles, appeared at his elbow. He leaned in and whispered something in rapid Italian, too low and too fast for me to catch more than a few words. I caught problema and ignored, but that was all. The man. My mind had started calling him that, simply the man, as if giving him any other title would make him too real. Listened without taking his eyes off me. When his guard finished speaking, he nodded once, a sharp, dismissive gesture. I need to make a phone call, he said to me, as if I had been part of the conversation. You'll wait. It was not a request. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the casual certainty of someone who expected obedience without question. I really should finish closing, I tried. Even though we both knew I was not going anywhere, something in the air between us had shifted. The restaurant, which had felt safe and familiar moments ago, now felt like a cage, or maybe a stage. I was not sure which was worse. You'll wait, he repeated, softer this time, but somehow more absolute. Then he turned and walked back toward table 7. Pulling a phone from his inner jacket pocket. His guards followed, creating a loose perimeter around him, even in the empty restaurant. I stood there holding my napkin, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to understand what had just happened. The smart thing would be to go straight to the kitchen, grab my coat, and leave through the back door. Lock it behind me and never look back. But I did not move. I could not. It was as if his words had roots that had grown down through the marble floor and wrapped around my ankles. I busied myself with meaningless tasks, rearranging the salt and pepper shakers on nearby tables, straightening the chairs that were already straight. All the while, I was hyper-aware of him. He spoke into his phone in low tones, that mixture of Italian and English that seemed designed to be overheard and yet remain incomprehensible. His posture was relaxed, but there was something coiled about it, like a snake pretending to sleep. 10 minutes passed. 15. The chef poked his head out of the kitchen, gave me a questioning look. I waved him away, mouthing that I would lock up. He hesitated. He knew whose table I was waiting on. I could see it in his eyes, but ultimately, he nodded and disappeared. A few minutes later, I heard the back door close. Now, it was truly just us, me and 3 men who radiated danger like other people radiated warmth. The man ended his call and slipped the phone back into his jacket. He said something to his guards, who both stood immediately. For a moment, I thought they were all leaving. Relief and something else, something I did not want to examine too closely, flooded through me. The guards, however, moved toward the entrance, taking positions and watching the street, not leaving but securing the perimeter. The man remained seated, and now he was looking at me again with that same unwavering intensity. Come here. My feet moved before my brain could intervene, carrying me across the dining room toward table 7. I stopped a respectful distance away, my hands twisted together in front of me. Sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. I should really... Emma. The way he said my name stopped me mid-sentence. It was not threatening exactly, but it was absolute. Sit, please. The please was an afterthought, a concession to social norms that we both knew were already shattered. I sat. Up close, he was even more striking. The candlelight caught the planes of his face, creating shadows that made him look like something carved from marble. Dangerous beauty. The kind that belonged in museums behind velvet ropes and security cameras. You're afraid, he observed. Should I be? He considered this, his head tilting slightly. That depends on who you ask. I'm asking you. The corner of his mouth twitched. No, you should not be afraid. Not of me. The distinction was not lost on me. Not of him, but maybe of the world he inhabited. The world that required armed guards and midnight phone calls, and the kind of power that made managers warn their staff not to make eye contact. Why am I here? I asked quietly. Why did you ask me to stay? He leaned forward slightly, his hands folded on the table. Beautiful hands. I noticed long fingers, manicured nails, a silver ring on his right index finger engraved with something I could not make out in the dim light. Because, he said slowly, you made a mistake. My stomach dropped. What? Earlier tonight, you brought bread to this table. His eyes never left mine. Do you remember? I did vaguely. Marco had been in the kitchen arguing with the chef about a burned risotto, and a basket of bread had been sitting on the counter. I had grabbed it and brought it to table 7 without thinking, just trying to keep things moving. Yes, I am sorry if that was. You picked up a piece of paper, he continued, his voice still gentle, still terrifying. It had fallen from my jacket onto the floor. You picked it up and placed it on the table without reading it. I did remember that now. A folded piece of paper, cream-colored, expensive-looking. I had barely glanced at it before setting it beside his water glass. I did not read it, I said quickly. I would not. I know. He smiled then, and it transformed his entire face. For a brief, dizzying moment, he looked almost kind. That's the problem. I do not understand. My associates believe you saw what was written on that paper. They believe you might share that information intentionally or otherwise. They believe you represent a security risk. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. My mouth went dry, but I did not see anything. I did not read it. I swear. I believe you. He leaned back in his chair, still studying me with those unfathomable dark eyes. But my associates are less trusting. They've suggested several solutions to this problem. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I understood now why the other staff had left, why I was alone, why the guards were positioned at the door. So what happens now? My voice was barely a whisper. He was quiet for a long moment, so long that I thought he might not answer. Then he stood, buttoning his jacket with precise, elegant movements. Now, he said, dinner is not over. He held out his hand to me, palm up, an invitation and a command all at once. His guards straightened at the door, hands moving to their waists where I had no doubt they carried weapons. I stared at his outstretched hand, my heart thundering so loudly I was certain he could hear it. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to call for help, to do anything except take that hand. But as I looked up at his face, I saw something there that I had not expected. Not cruelty or malice, but something far more complicated. Something that looked almost like regret. Where are we going? I asked. His fingers remained extended, waiting, patient, inevitable. Somewhere safe, he said, then quieter. I promise you, Emma, I will not let anything happen to you. And despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the very obvious danger, I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to. Maybe in that moment, with exhaustion weighing down my bones and loneliness echoing in my chest, the idea of someone making promises to me, even dangerous ones, was too seductive to resist. I placed my trembling hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and firm, and I felt the world as I knew it fall away. He pulled me gently to my feet, and I noticed for the first time how small I was next to him, how fragile I must appear in my stained uniform and worn shoes. One of the guards stepped forward, holding out a long black coat. The man took it and draped it around my shoulders with surprising gentleness. It's cold outside, he explained, as if that were the most pressing concern, as if my entire life had not just pivoted on an axis I did not understand. He kept my hand in his as he led me toward the door. His grip was unbreakable, but not painful, possessive. The guards fell into formation around us, and I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the restaurant's window as we passed. I looked small and lost inside his coat, my face pale and my eyes too wide. I looked like someone being led into a fairy tale, the kind where the girl does not know if she is being rescued or captured until the very last page. The door opened onto the night, and a black SUV with tinted windows idled at the curb, exhaust forming clouds in the cold air. A driver stood beside it, his face carefully blank as the man guided me toward the vehicle. His thumb traced a small circle on the back of my hand. The gesture was so intimate, so unexpected that I stumbled slightly. He caught me immediately, his other arm coming around my waist to steady me. For just a moment, his face was very close to mine, and I could see gold flecks in those dark eyes I thought were black. "Careful," he murmured. Then he was helping me into the SUV, sliding in beside me, his guards taking positions in the front and in a second vehicle that materialized from the shadows. The door closed with a solid final thunk. The last thing I saw before we pulled away from Luciano's was the restaurant sign flickering in the rearview mirror, growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely into the New York night. The leather seat beneath me was soft, expensive, nothing like the cracked vinyl of the subway cars I rode every day. The interior of the SUV smelled like new car, and that same scent I had noticed on him, leather and smoke and winter. A partition separated us from the driver and the guard in the passenger seat, offering an illusion of privacy that somehow felt more dangerous than exposure. He sat beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. His presence filled the confined space, made the air feel thinner. I kept my hands folded in my lap, his coat still draped around my shoulders like a claim. "Where are we going?" I asked again, trying to keep my voice steady. "My home." He was looking out the window, watching the city slide past in streaks of neon and shadow. "You'll stay there tonight. I can't just— I have work tomorrow. You're not going back to Luciano's." He turned to face me, and in the passing streetlights, his features shifted between shadow and illumination. "You're not going back to your apartment either." "Not yet." My chest tightened. "You know where I live, Emma?" He said my name like he was tasting it, deciding if he liked the flavor. "I know everything about you. Your address on Bleecker Street, 3rd floor, apartment 3C, the window that does not lock properly, the landlord who will not fix your heating, your student loans from NYU where you dropped out 2 years ago when your mother got sick, the medical bills you're still paying off even though she died 8 months ago." Each fact felt like a hand closing around my throat. I pressed myself against the door, my fingers finding the handle. "Locked?" Of course, it was locked. Why would you?" I could not finish the sentence. The implications were too vast, too terrifying, because the moment you touched that paper, you became my responsibility. His voice remained calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "My people ran a background check within an hour. They wanted to know if you were a plant, an informant, a threat. They wanted to know everything. And what did they find?" The question came out bitter, sharp, a broke waitress with a dead mother and too many bills. Very threatening. They found someone alone, vulnerable, someone who works herself to exhaustion in a restaurant where dangerous men conduct business, someone no one would miss if she disappeared. He leaned closer and I could see my reflection in his dark eyes. They found an easy solution to their problem. My breath caught. "And you?" I found something different. His hand moved, not touching me, but resting on the seat between us. An offering, an option. I found someone who picked up a stranger's paper and did not read it because it was not hers to read. Someone with integrity in a world that usually beats that out of people. Someone worth protecting from your own people. Yes. No hesitation, no shame. We drove in silence for a while. The city changed around us, the cramped streets of my neighborhood giving way to wider avenues, taller buildings. We were heading uptown, toward the part of Manhattan I only saw in movies. "What was on the paper?" I finally asked. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Names, dates, the kind of information that could get a lot of people killed or arrested, depending on who found it first. "So, I stopped myself, suddenly aware that knowing too much could be its own death sentence. "You can say it, Emma. I will not be offended." He shifted in his seat, angling his body toward mine. "I am what you think I am, what your manager warned you about on your first day, what the chef whispers about after his 4th glass of wine, what the other servers pretend not to see when they collect payment in cash from my table. A criminal." The word felt childish, inadequate. "A businessman," he corrected, his tone almost amused. "The nature of my business is simply different from most." The SUV turned onto a tree-lined street that looked like it belonged in a different city entirely. Brownstones with pristine facades, doormen in uniform, street lamps that actually worked. We pulled up in front of a building that took up half the block, all glass and steel and obvious wealth. The guard in front exited first, scanning the street with practiced efficiency. Then he opened my door and suddenly the November air hit me colder than I remembered. I clutched the coat tighter around my shoulders. The man, I still did not know his name, I realized, emerged from the other side, buttoning his jacket. He moved around the vehicle and appeared at my side, offering his hand again. This time, I took it without hesitation. I was not sure what that said about me. This way. He kept my hand in his as we walked toward the building's entrance. The doorman, an older man with silver hair and sharp eyes, nodded at us. "Good evening, Mr. D'Angelo." D'Angelo. Finally, a name to attach to the face. Though somehow hearing it made everything more real, more terrifying. The lobby was all marble and mirrors, the kind of space designed to make you feel small. My worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, the sound echoing embarrassingly. I caught sight of myself in one of the mirrors, disheveled and exhausted in my stained uniform, completely out of place next to D'Angelo's pressed suit and commanding presence. "Top floor," he said to the elevator operator, another man in uniform who kept his eyes carefully forward. As we rose, I counted the floors. 20, 30, 40. The numbers kept climbing, and with them, my sense of unreality. This could not be happening. I could not be in a private elevator with a man whose name I had learned from his doorman, heading to God knows where for God knows what purpose. The elevator opened directly into an apartment. No, a penthouse. The space was enormous. All floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city like a kingdom spread out below. The decor was minimalist but clearly expensive. Dark leather furniture, original art on the walls, a bar made of black granite in one corner. Everything was clean, precise, controlled. Like him. "You're safe here," he said, releasing my hand. Finally, he moved to the bar, pulling out a crystal decanter filled with amber liquid. "No one can reach you. No one even knows you're here except my most trusted people. That's supposed to make me feel better." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how cold I was despite the coat. Being trapped in a stranger's penthouse, he poured 2 glasses, brought one to me. "Drink. It will help with the shock." I took it but did not drink, just held the glass and felt its weight. "I want to go home. Your apartment is not safe. My associates know where you live. Some of them," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Some of them do not share my perspective on the situation. They see loose ends, problems to be solved. And you see, what exactly?" I finally met his gaze, anger cutting through my fear. "A damsel in distress. A charity case. Someone to play hero for." His expression darkened. "I see someone who is in the wrong place at the wrong time and does not deserve to die for it." The bluntness of the statement stole my breath. Die. He had said it so casually, like discussing the weather. This is insane. I set the glass down on the nearest surface, my hand shaking. "I should call the police. I should. And tell them what?" He moved closer. "Not threatening, but intense. That you witnessed nothing, saw nothing. That you're being held against your will by a man who is offering you protection. The police cannot help you, Emma. They cannot protect you from the kind of people who want you silent. But you can. Yes. Simple. Absolute. Terrifying in its certainty." I sank onto the leather couch, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. The adrenaline that had been keeping me upright drained away, leaving me hollow. How long? What? How long do I have to stay here? How long until it's safe for me to go back to my life? He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he did not want to say. "I do not know. Days. Weeks. However long it takes to convince my associates that you're not a threat. That you're..." He paused, something flickering across his face. "That you're mine to deal with." The possessive pronoun hung in the air between us. Mine. "I have a life," I said quietly. "Bills to pay. A job I cannot afford to lose. I cannot just disappear. Your bills will be handled. Your job," he shrugged. "Consider it handled as well. I do not want your money. It is not about what you want." He sat down across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. For the first time, he looked almost tired. "It is about keeping you alive. Everything else is secondary." I wanted to argue, to rage against the unfairness of it all, but looking at him at the absolute conviction in his dark eyes, I knew it would be pointless. Something had shifted tonight. Some cosmic gear had turned and I had been caught in its teeth. "What's your first name?" I asked instead. He blinked, clearly not expecting the question. "Dante D'Angelo." I tested the name, found it fit him perfectly. Beautiful and dangerous. That's very Italian. "My grandfather. I never met him either." The echo of my earlier words was intentional. A small bridge across the vast distance between us. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Almost. A phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Stay here. He walked toward the windows, speaking in rapid Italian. I caught a few words. Problema still, and what sounded like a name. His posture changed as he listened, becoming rigid, controlled fury barely leashed. I took the opportunity to look around more carefully. Everything in this space was expensive, but it was also strangely impersonal. No photos, no mementos, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. It could have been a hotel suite, beautifully appointed but ultimately hollow, except for one thing. On the bar, partially hidden behind the decanter, was a small frame. I stood and moved closer, careful not to draw Dante's attention. The photo was old, the color slightly faded. A young boy, maybe 10, standing next to an older man with his hand on the boy's shoulder. They had the same dark eyes, the same sharp features, both unsmiling, both already carrying shadows. My father. I jumped. I had not heard him approach. He was standing behind me close enough that I could feel his breath on my hair. You look like him, I said. I know. He reached past me and turned the frame face down with deliberate care. He died when I was 12, betrayed by someone he trusted. The weight of that statement settled over us. This was why he understood loose ends and security risks, why he saw threats in shadows and kept guards at every door. He had learned young that trust was a luxury that could kill you. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Do not be. It taught me everything I needed to know about this life. He turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. It taught me that protection is the only real currency. Power means nothing if you cannot keep safe what matters to you. And I matter. The question came out smaller than I intended. To you? His thumb traced along my collarbone, just above where his coat draped over my shoulders. The touch was feather light, but I felt it everywhere. You picked up a piece of paper. Something so small, so insignificant. You could have read it. You could have ignored it. You could have done anything except what you did, which was treat it with care, with respect, even though you had no idea what it was. That kind of integrity. He paused, his eyes searching my face. Yes, Emma, you matter. My heart hammered against my ribs. This close, I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell that intoxicating scent of leather and smoke, could feel the heat of his body like a physical force. This is crazy, I whispered. I know. I do not even know you. You know enough. His hand moved to my face, cupping my jaw with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. You know I am dangerous. You know I am not a good man. You know you should run from me. Then why am I not running? His smile was slow, predatory, beautiful. Because you're tired of being invisible. Tired of working yourself to death for people who do not even know your name? Tired of being alone in a city that eats people like you alive? His thumb brushed across my lower lip. Because for the first time in a very long time, someone sees you, Emma Morelli, and that's more intoxicating than any amount of fear. He was right, and I hated him for it. Hated how easily he had read me. How accurately he had diagnosed the loneliness that had been eating me from the inside out since my mother died, since before that. Maybe I should hate you, I said. You probably should. You've kidnapped me. I've protected you. His other hand came up, framing my face between his palms. There's a difference. Is there? Instead of answering, he leaned down slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I did not. I stayed frozen, caught between terror and something else entirely as his lips brushed against mine. The kiss was soft, questioning, almost reverent, nothing like I expected from a man like him. It tasted like whiskey and danger and promises that would probably destroy me. When he pulled back, his eyes were darker than ever. Get some rest, he said, his voice rougher than before. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what comes next. He stepped away, leaving me cold and confused and aching in ways I did not want to examine. The bedroom is through there. Everything you need is in the closet. Clothes, toiletries, they should fit. How could you possibly? I had someone pick them up while we were driving. Your sizes were easy enough to obtain. He said it like it was normal. Like having the resources to outfit a stranger in an hour was nothing remarkable. I wanted to argue, to assert some kind of independence, but exhaustion dragged at my bones, and the thought of a real bed, safety, even temporary peace was too tempting. Dante, I said as he turned to leave. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. What happens if your people do not agree? If they do not accept me as your responsibility? His expression went cold, arctic, terrifying. Then they'll learn what happens when someone tries to take what's mine. The words should have frightened me. They did frighten me, but they also sent a thrill down my spine that I refused to acknowledge. He left, disappearing into another part of the penthouse, and I stood alone in the vast living room, touching my lips where his had been, wondering what I had become in the span of a single night. The bedroom was as impersonal as the rest of the space, but the bed looked like heaven. I found the closet he had mentioned, full of clothes in my exact size, from jeans to dresses to pajamas that were softer than anything I had ever owned. It should have been creepy. It was creepy, but it was also intoxicating, just like he had said. Being seen, being cared for, even by someone dangerous. I changed into the pajamas, washed my face in the marble bathroom, and crawled between sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The city glittered beyond the windows, millions of lights in the darkness. I should have been planning my escape, should have been terrified, should have been a lot of things. Instead, I lay there thinking about dark eyes and gentle hands, and the way he had said my name like it meant something. Sleep took me under like a wave, and I dreamed of shadows and smoke, and a cage made of silk. Sunlight woke me, sharp and insistent through windows I had forgotten to cover. For a confused moment, I did not recognize where I was. The ceiling too high, the sheets too soft, the silence too complete. Then memory crashed back like a wave. The restaurant, the paper, Dante's hand in mine, his kiss. I sat up quickly, my heart racing. The bedroom door was closed, but I could smell coffee brewing somewhere in the penthouse. The clothes from last night were gone, replaced by fresh ones laid out on a chair, jeans, a cream-colored sweater, even undergarments in the right size. The attention to detail was unnerving. I dressed quickly, ran my fingers through my tangled hair, and ventured out into the living room. Morning light transformed the space, making it less ominous, but no less intimidating. The city sprawled beyond the windows, close enough to touch, but feeling impossibly distant. Dante stood at the kitchen island, perfectly dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. "Coffee?" He gestured to a second cup already poured. "Thank you." I took it, grateful for something to do with my hands. The coffee was perfect, the exact amount of cream I preferred. Of course, he knew that too. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I should have, probably." I leaned against the counter, maintaining distance between us. In the daylight, everything felt more real, more dangerous. "What happens now?" "Now, we establish some ground rules." He set down his own cup with careful precision. "You do not leave this building without me or my guards. You do not contact anyone from your old life, friends, co-workers, no one. You do not go in windows without the curtains drawn after dark. And you do not ask questions about my business." Each rule felt like a bar sliding into place. "So, I'm a prisoner. You're protected." His jaw tightened. "There's a difference." "You keep saying that." I'm not sure I believe it anymore. Before he could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. "I need to take this. Stay here." He walked toward his office, the door closing with a definitive click. I stood alone in the gleaming kitchen, coffee growing cold in my hands, and wondered how my life had become so unrecognizable in less than 12 hours. The penthouse felt different in his absence, larger, emptier, more like the cage I had accused it of being. I wandered through the space looking for something, anything that would tell me who Dante D'Angelo really was beneath the expensive suits and careful control. I found it in his office. The door had not latched properly. Through the gap, I could hear his voice, still speaking Italian, but with an edge of barely controlled fury. My limited understanding caught fragments, "Traitor, traitor," and sang blood. I should not have looked. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to maintain the plausible deniability that might keep me alive. But my hand was already pushing the door open slightly, my eyes adjusting to the darker room beyond. Dante stood with his back to me, one hand braced against a massive wooden desk, the other gripping his phone so tightly I could see the white of his knuckles from across the room. Behind him, covering the wall, was something that stole my breath. An enormous, detailed map was covered in pins and photographs, showing connections. It included lines connecting names I recognized from newspapers, charting criminal empires like constellations. At its very center was a photograph of a man with Dante's eyes and a smile that looked like it could cut glass. "Capisci?" Dante's voice cracked like a whip. He took what was mine. Now I'd take everything from him. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a shift of weight because he turned sharply. For a heartbeat, his face was utterly foreign, cold, merciless, capable of terrible things. Then he saw me and something shifted. "I'll call you back." He ended the call, setting the phone down with exaggerated care. "Emma, I'm sorry. I did not mean to." The door was open, and the excuses died on my tongue as he crossed the room toward me. "What did you hear?" "Nothing. I mean, I do not speak Italian, and I was not." "Emma." He was close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. What did you hear? Something about a traitor, about taking something back. I forced myself not to look away. Who is he? The man in the photo? Dante's jaw worked. For a long moment, I thought he would not answer. Then, Marco Vitali. He worked for my father, then for me. 3 weeks ago, he stole from me and ran. Now he's working with my enemies. What did he steal? Something valuable. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with unexpected gentleness. You're asking dangerous questions. You already said I cannot ask about your business. No, I said you should not. His thumb traced along my jawline. There's a difference. You like those differences that do not actually exist. His smile was sharp. They exist. You just do not want to see them yet. He glanced back at the map, his expression hardening. Marco did not just steal money or product. He stole something personal. And he knew exactly how much it would hurt me. What was it? Information. Names of people I protect. Business partners. Family. His eyes met mine again, and I saw something raw there beneath the ice. He's selling it piece by piece to my competitors. Every name he gives them is another person in danger. Another weakness exposed. Understanding dawned cold and terrible. The paper I picked up. That was about him. Yes. Meeting locations. Contacts. Patterns. We're close to finding him. His hand dropped from my face. Which is why my people are nervous about loose ends. About anyone who might have seen something. Known something. Even accidentally. But I did not. I know. He stepped back, creating distance that felt like a wall. But they do not trust easily. Not after Marco. They see betrayal in shadows now. I understood then, really understood, what he had saved me from. Not just death, but the paranoid, methodical elimination of even the possibility of a threat. To men who had been betrayed by one of their own. I was just another risk to be neutralized. How do we convince them? I asked quietly. We do not. I do. He moved back to his desk, pulling something from a drawer. A phone, sleek and new. This is yours now. My number is the only one programmed in. You need anything, you call me. Day or night, I took the phone, feeling its weight. This feels like a leash. It's a lifeline. His voice was hard. Use it or do not, but do not say I did not give you options. The next hours passed in strange domesticity. Dante made phone calls in his office while I explored the penthouse like a ghost haunting someone else's life. I found a library filled with books in 3 languages, a gym with equipment I did not recognize, a second bedroom that appeared completely unused. Lunch arrived via private elevator. Food from a restaurant I could not afford in a lifetime, delivered by a man who kept his eyes carefully averted. Dante ate methodically, checking his phone between bites, his mind clearly elsewhere. I have to go out tonight, he said finally, setting down his fork. Business that cannot wait. And me? You stay here. My head of security will be posted outside. You'll be safe. Safe and alone? His eyes flashed. Would you prefer to come with me to a meeting with men who might decide you're too much of a liability? Who might test whether I value your life over business relationships that go back decades? I fell silent, chastened. I did not think so. He stood, buttoning his jacket. This is how it has to be, Emma. For now. He left as the sun set, the city lights beginning to flicker on like stars. I stood at the window, watching his SUV pull away, flanked by 2 others, a convoy, an army for 1 man. The penthouse felt vast without him. I tried to read, to watch television, to do anything but think about where he was and what he was doing, who he was becoming in my mind. Not just my captor, but something more complicated, something dangerous. Near midnight, the phone he had given me rang. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Emma. His voice was tight, controlled. I need you to listen carefully. My heart stuttered. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything's fine. But I need you to do something for me. A pause. Voices in the background speaking rapid Italian. Go to my bedroom. In the closet, there's a safe behind the shirts on the left side. The combination is your birthday, month, day, year. Inside is a red envelope. Bring it to the phone. I was already moving, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. Dante, what's happening? Just do it, please. His bedroom was as impersonal as mine, all clean lines and neutral colors. The closet was enormous, filled with suits and shoes, organized with military precision. I found the safe exactly where he said, my fingers shaking as I entered the numbers. The door swung open. Inside was money, stacks of it, a gun, several passports, and the red envelope. I have it, I said, my voice barely steady. Open it. Inside was a single photograph. A young woman, maybe my age, with dark hair and a bright smile, beautiful in an effortless way that made my chest ache. Behind her, partially visible, was Dante. Younger, less guarded, actually smiling. "Who is she?" I whispered. Her name was Julia. His voice cracked on the name just slightly. She was Marco's sister, and she was going to be my wife. The past tense hung heavy. Was what happened to her. She died 3 years ago. An accident that... He paused, collecting himself. An accident that maybe was not an accident. Marco blamed me. Said I should have protected her better. Should have kept her away from this life. He was right. I sank onto the edge of his bed, the photograph trembling in my hands. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the men I am with tonight are asking questions about you. About why I am protecting a stranger. About what you mean to me." His voice dropped lower, and I realized I do not have a good answer. Not one they'll accept. "So, what do we tell them?" "The truth." A breath heavy with implication. "That you remind me of her. That when I saw you in that restaurant alone and working yourself to death, I saw what could have happened to Julia if she had lived differently. And I could not." He stopped. "I could not let anything happen to you." Tears burned my eyes. "I am not her, Dunt. I know. Believe me, I know." A long pause. "But maybe that's why this matters. You're not her ghost. You're just you. And that's somehow worse. Somehow more dangerous. To whom? To me." The admission hung between us, raw and unexpected. In the background, I heard someone call his name. "I have to go," he said. "Stay inside. Stay safe. I'll be home soon." Home. He had said home. The call ended, leaving me alone with the photograph of a dead woman and the weight of understanding. This was not about the paper I had picked up. It was not even about protecting me from his paranoid associates. It was about a man who had lost someone and saw in me a chance at something. Redemption, maybe, or just the illusion of it. And I was caught in the gravity of his grief, pulled into an orbit I did not understand and could not escape. I set the photograph back in the safe carefully, my hands still shaking, and wondered what it meant that I did not want to escape. Not really, not anymore. Dante returned near 3 in the morning. I heard the elevator, the low murmur of voices, then the door to the penthouse opening and closing with careful quiet. I was still awake, curled on the couch with a book I had not been able to focus on for hours. He appeared in the doorway, jacket gone, shirt untucked, looking more disheveled than I had ever seen him. There was blood on his knuckles. I was on my feet before I could think. "You're hurt. It is not mine." He moved to the bar, poured 3 fingers of whiskey, downed it in one swallow. "You should be asleep." I was waiting. I crossed to him, reaching for his hand without thinking. He let me take it, let me examine the split skin across his knuckles, the bruising already forming. "What happened?" "A disagreement. It's handled." He pulled his hand back gently. "You found the photograph?" "Yes." I met his eyes. "You loved her." "I did." No hesitation, no shame. She was everything this world is not. Kind, hopeful, clean. Being with her felt like absolution. His jaw tightened, and then she was gone. And I realized absolution is not something people like me get to have. "People like you," I repeated. "You mean criminals? Killers?" "I mean people who make choices that destroy the things they love." He poured another drink but did not consume it, just stared into the amber liquid like it held answers. "I brought her into my world thinking I could keep her separate from it, that my money and power could build walls high enough. I was wrong. It was not your fault she died." His laugh was bitter. "You do not know that. You do not know anything about how she died. Then tell me." He looked at me for a long moment, something warring behind his eyes. Then he drained the second glass and set it down with careful precision. "She was driving home from a charity event, something she had organized to help children in the city. She was good like that, always trying to fix things, save people." His voice went flat. Her brakes failed on the FDR drive. The car went into the river. By the time they pulled her out, she had been underwater for 20 minutes. My chest constricted. "Dante." The brake line had been cut. Professionally, deliberately. He turned to face me fully. Marco was the first person at the scene. He pulled her body from the car himself. He was screaming about how I had killed her, how my enemies had taken her because I could not protect what was mine. And he was right. "So, he turned against you." "Not immediately. That came later after the grief turned to rage. After he started seeing my face and remembering his sister's body." Dante moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the dim light. "Tonight, my associates asked me why I care so much about keeping you alive. Why I am willing to risk my reputation, my relationships, everything I have built for a waitress who saw nothing. What did you tell them? That you're under my protection? That anyone who touches you answers to me personally?" His hand came up, cupping my face with startling gentleness. "And that if they have a problem with that, They can take it up with me directly. The blood on your knuckles. That was someone taking it up with you. That was someone learning what happens when they question my decisions. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. You're safe now, Emma. They've accepted that you're mine to handle. There was that word again. Mine. It should have angered me. Instead, heat pooled low in my stomach. For how long? I whispered. For as long as I say so. His eyes searched my face. Does that frighten you? Yes. Honesty felt like the only option between us, but not as much as it should. He leaned down slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I did not. This kiss was different from the first. Hungrier, more desperate, carrying the weight of everything unsaid between us. I tasted whiskey and danger and something that might have been need. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. You should go to bed, he said roughly. While I still have the control to let you. I should have listened, should have walked away, put distance between us, maintained whatever boundaries still existed. Instead, I heard myself ask, what if I do not want to go alone? His eyes went dark. Emma, I'm tired of being alone, tired of being invisible. You said that yourself. I stepped closer, closing the distance he had created. Maybe I want to feel seen. Maybe I want to stop thinking for just one night. You do not know what you're asking. Then show me for a heartbeat. He did not move. Then his control shattered. His mouth crashed against mine, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pulled me flush against him. I gasped at the contact, at the solid heat of his body, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I could not remember why this was a bad idea. He lifted me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me through the penthouse. Not to my room, to his. The door slammed behind us, and then we were falling onto his bed, all tangled limbs and desperate hands. Last chance, he growled against my throat. Tell me to stop. I pulled his shirt free from his pants, my hands finding the warm skin beneath. Do not stop. What followed was intense, consuming, everything I had never let myself want. He was gentle and rough by turns, reading my body like a language he had studied, learning what made me gasp and arch and forget my own name. And when it was over, when we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like him, I felt more alive than I had in years, also more terrified. Regrets? He asked quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. Ask me in the morning. He pulled me closer, tucking me against his chest. Stay. Sleep here tonight. I should have said no. Should have maintained some boundary. Some piece of myself he did not own. But his heartbeat was steady beneath my ear. And his arms felt like the safest place in the world. And I was so tired of being strong alone. Okay, I whispered. I felt him smile against my hair. Okay. I woke to an empty bed and voices raised in anger somewhere in the penthouse. Dante's voice, controlled but lethal, and another man's, accented, aggressive, familiar, in a way that made my skin crawl. I dressed quickly in one of Dante's shirts and my jeans from yesterday, following the sound to his office. The door was partially open, and through the gap, I could see them. Dante behind his desk and across from him, a man with graying hair and cold eyes that held nothing but contempt. She's a liability, the stranger was saying in English, heavily accented with Italian. You think with your ego instead of your head, and it will get you killed like it got Julia killed. Dante's fist slammed on the desk. Do not speak her name. You've lost that right. I loved her more than you ever could. She was my blood, Marco. This was Marco Vitali, and you betrayed everything she believed in when you stole from me. Dante's voice was ice. When you sold out the family she considered her own. When you put innocent people in danger for your revenge. Innocent? Marco laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. There are no innocent people in your world, D'Angelo. Only those who have not been caught yet. His eyes shifted, landing on me in the doorway like her. I froze. Caught. Dante turned, his expression flickering from fury to concern in an instant. Emma, go back to the bedroom. No. Marco smiled, and it was nothing like Dante's rare expressions of warmth. This was all teeth and malice. Let her stay. Let her see what kind of man she's sleeping with. Marco. Dante's warning was clear. Did he tell you how Julia really died? How her brake line was cut by his enemies? How she drowned, screaming his name, begging for help that never came? Marco took a step toward me. Did he tell you that 3 weeks later he killed everyone involved? 17 men. Emma. He killed them himself with his own hands in ways that made hardened criminals weep. My stomach turned. I looked at Dante, saw the truth in his eyes. They took someone I loved, Dante said quietly. They paid the price. And what price will she pay? Marco gestured at me. When your enemies find out about her, when they realize the great Dante D'Angelo has another weakness to exploit, they will not touch her because you will protect her. Marco's laugh was bitter. Like you protected Julia. Face it, D'Angelo. Everyone you love dies. It is what you do. It is who you are. Dante moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was behind the desk. The next he had Marco by the throat, pressed against the wall with enough force to crack the plaster. Get out, Dante snarled. Get out before I forget. We have history. Before I forget, Julia would have wanted you alive. Marco's face was red, veins bulging, but he managed to smile. She's already dead, D'Angelo. And soon your new pet will be too. It is only a matter of time. Dante released him with a shove. Marco straightened his jacket, shot me one last contemptuous look, and walked out. The elevator doors closed on his cold smile. Silence filled the penthouse like smoke. Is it true? I asked quietly. About the 17 men? Dante did not turn around. Yes. And what he said about me being in danger? Also true. He finally faced me, and I saw exhaustion in every line of his body. This is what I am, Emma. What I do. I kill people who threaten what's mine. I destroy anyone who tries to take from me. And everyone I have ever cared about has suffered for it. So what does that make me? He crossed to me, framing my face between his hands. It makes you the biggest mistake I have ever made. And the one thing I am not willing to give up, even if it gets me killed, it will not. The absoluteness in his voice should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. I will not let it. You could not stop them from killing Julia. Pain flashed across his face. I know, but I have learned since then. I am stronger now, more careful, more ruthless. His forehead pressed against mine. I will not lose you the way I lost her. I cannot. Standing there in his arms, I understood with perfect clarity what I had become. Not a prisoner, not protected. Something far more dangerous. Cherished by a man who destroyed everything he loved, trying to keep it safe. And the most terrifying part was that I did not want to leave. The days that followed Marco's visit blurred together in a strange domesticity threaded with constant danger. Dante's guards tripled. Every entrance to the building was monitored. I was not allowed near windows after dark, and even during the day, curtains remained partially drawn. The penthouse became a gilded cage, beautiful and suffocating in equal measure. But it was also becoming something else. Home. Dante worked from his office most days. His door open so he could see me moving through the space. We ate meals together, breakfast at the island, dinner at the table overlooking the city. He taught me phrases in Italian, laughed when I butchered the pronunciation. I learned he took his coffee black, that he had a weakness for old films, that he played piano when he could not sleep. At night, I slept in his bed, wrapped in his arms, and tried not to think about what that meant. Tried not to examine too closely why I felt safer with a killer than I ever had alone. 2 weeks after Marco's confrontation, Dante came home early. I was reading in the library, curled into the leather chair by the window, when I heard the elevator. Something in the sound of his footsteps made me look up. He appeared in the doorway, and I saw it immediately. The tension in his shoulders, the darkness in his eyes. Something had happened. What's wrong? I set down my book standing. We found him. Marco. Dante's voice was carefully controlled. He has been hiding in a warehouse in Red Hook. My people have it surrounded. My heart stuttered. What are you going to do? What I should have done weeks ago. He moved to me, his hands gentle on my shoulders despite the violence humming beneath his skin. I am going to end this tonight. You're going to kill him? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. I should have been horrified. Should have begged him not to. Should have seen this as the final confirmation of what he truly was. Instead, I found myself asking, will you be safe? His expression softened. You're worried about me. Of course I am. He's dangerous. He knows you. Knows how you think. Emma. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. I have been doing this since I was 17. Marco is good, but I am better. I'll come home to you. I promise. Do not make promises you cannot keep. I always keep my promises to you. He kissed me slow and deep like he was memorizing the taste. When he pulled back, his eyes were intense. When this is over, things will change. You'll be able to leave the penthouse, go places, live something closer to a normal life. Would you want that? The question hung between us, loaded with implications I was not ready to examine. What are you asking me, Dante? I am asking if you would stay. Not because you have to, not because it's safer, but because you want to. His thumb traced my lower lip. I am asking if you could see a future here. With me. My breath caught. You're a criminal. You kill people. Your enemies would use me to hurt you. There is nothing normal about any of this. I know. A ghost of a smile. But I am asking anyway. I thought about my old life. The studio apartment with broken heating. the endless shifts at Luciano's, the bone-deep loneliness that had consumed me since my mother died. I thought about these past weeks, the fear and the passion and the strange sense of being seen, truly seen for the first time in my life. "Ask me again," I whispered. "When you come home, when this is really over." His smile was real this time, bright and devastating. "I will." He kissed me once more, then stepped back, his expression shifting into something harder. The man who had held me gently was replaced by the man who had killed 17 people with his bare hands. Both were him. Both were real. "Stay inside. Do not answer the door for anyone but my head of security. His name is Luca. You've seen him before. Scarred face, gray at the temples. If anyone else tries to get in, there's a panic button in my bedroom closet, red behind the safe. Understood?" "Understood." He left, and the penthouse felt immediately colder. I tried to read, to watch television, to do anything but imagine what was happening in a warehouse across the city. But my mind conjured images I could not escape. Dante, injured, bleeding, dying while I sat in luxury and safety. Hours crawled past. Midnight came and went. I paced the living room, my phone clutched in my hand, willing it to ring. At 2 a.m, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Not the elevator. The emergency stairwell door opening. I ran to Dante's bedroom, my heart hammering. Found the panic button exactly where he had said. My finger was an inch from pressing it when I heard the voice. "Emma, it is Luca. Do not be afraid." I crept back to the living room. Luca stood just inside the penthouse, his face grim, his clothes spattered with what looked like blood. Behind him were 2 other guards I recognized, both looking equally serious. "What happened?" My voice came out thin. "Where's Dante?" "He's fine. He is coming up now." But Luca hesitated. "He's bringing someone. I need you to stay calm." Before I could ask what he meant, the elevator doors opened. Dante emerged, his suit jacket gone, his shirt torn and bloodied, and behind him, barely standing, supported by 2 more guards, was Marco Vitali. Marco looked broken, one eye swollen shut, blood streaming from his nose and mouth, his expensive suit in tatters, but he was alive. "What?" I started. "Go to the bedroom," Dante said quietly, not harsh, but firm. "Please, Emma. You do not need to see this." "You brought home?" The possessive slipped out before I could stop it. "I brought him here because I need him to understand something." Dante's eyes met mine. "And then I am letting him go." Marco laughed, the sound wet and painful. "Letting me go to do what? Run again? You know, I'll just..." He coughed, spitting blood. "I'll just come back. Keep coming until one of us is dead." "No, you will not." Dante moved to stand in front of him. "Because I am going to give you something you want more than revenge. More than my death." Marco's one good eye narrowed. "There is nothing you have that I want. Information." Dante pulled something from his pocket. "A flash drive. Everything I have on the people who killed Julia. Names, addresses, bank accounts, routines. Enough to destroy them completely." The room went silent. I saw understanding dawn on Marco's battered face, followed by suspicion. "Why?" "Because Julia would have wanted her brother to live. Because she loved you, and somewhere beneath all this rage and grief, I still remember loving her enough to honor that." Dante's voice was rough. "And because I am tired, Marco, tired of the cycle, tired of revenge, creating more death. It ends tonight. You take this information, you do what you need to do with it, and then you disappear. You never come after me or mine again. We're done." Just like that, Marco's voice dripped with disbelief. "You expect me to believe you're just letting me walk away? I expect you to be smart enough to take the offer while it is on the table." Dante held out the flash drive. "Because if you do not, if you keep coming after me, I will not show mercy again. And next time there will not be anything left of you to bury." Marco stared at the drive for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and took it. "She really did love you, you know, even at the end. Even when his voice broke, she was screaming for you when she died." Dante's jaw worked. "I know. I live with that every day." "Good." Marco straightened as much as his injuries would allow. "Then we're even." He turned to leave, the guards parting to let him pass. At the elevator, he paused, looking back at me for the first time. "Take care of him. God knows someone needs to." Then he was gone. The elevator descending, taking with it weeks of tension and fear and the specter of violence that had hung over everything. Dante stood motionless in the center of the room, blood on his clothes, exhaustion carved into every line of his body. Luca and the other guards quietly excused themselves, disappearing back down the emergency stairs. Finally, we were alone. "You let him go," I said quietly. "I did. Why? He turned to face me and I saw something in his expression I had never seen before. Peace, maybe. Or the beginning of it. Because you were right. I cannot keep destroying everything I touch. Cannot keep letting the past consume the future. He moved to me, his hands finding mine. And because I want a future, Emma, with you. A real one. Not built on revenge and death and old ghosts. Tears burn my eyes. I do not know how to do this. How to be with someone like you. How to reconcile what you are with what I feel. Neither do I. He pulled me close and I went willingly, pressing my face against his bloodied shirt, breathing in the scent of him, leather and smoke, and something entirely his own. But I want to try if you'll let me. I pulled back enough to look up at him. No more secrets. No more keeping me in the dark about your business, about the dangers. If I am going to stay, I need to know what I am staying for. Done. And I get to leave this penthouse, go outside, live something resembling a normal life with security. Always with security. I considered this. Nodded. Acceptable. Anything else? Yes. I reached up, framing his face between my hands. Ask me now. Ask me what you wanted to ask before you left. His eyes searched mine. Emma Morelli, will you stay? Not because you're afraid. Not because you have nowhere else to go. But because you want this. Want me broken and dangerous and completely wrong for you. I thought about the girl I had been 2 weeks ago. Exhausted, invisible, working herself to death in a restaurant where no one knew her name. I thought about the woman I had become in Dante's arms, seen, valued, cherished, despite every reason that should make this impossible. Yes, I whispered. I'll stay. His kiss was reverent, desperate, full of promises neither of us knew if we could keep, but we would try. God help us, we would try. Later, after he had showered and changed, after we had talked through the night about everything and nothing, we lay tangled together in his bed, watching the sun rise over the city. The same city where I had been invisible just weeks before. The same city that now felt full of possibility. What happens now? I asked, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. Now his fingers traced patterns on my shoulder. Now we figure out how to build something real. You go back to school if you want. Pursue your degree. I introduce you to my legitimate business contacts. Yes, I have some. We see if we can make this work outside of crisis and fear. And if we cannot, then at least we tried. At least we chose something other than loneliness and survival. He tilted my face up to his. But I think we can, Emma. I think we might surprise ourselves. I smiled, feeling it all the way to my bones. I think we might too. Outside the windows, the city woke to another day. Millions of people starting over, trying again, finding their own versions of redemption. In the spaces between darkness and light, in a penthouse high above it all, fate intervened. A criminal and a waitress who had picked up a piece of paper she should not have touched. They began the complicated work of building a life that should not exist, but somehow impossibly did. Months later, I would look back on this moment and marvel at my naivety, at the simplicity of thinking love and good intentions could erase the realities of Dante's world. There would be hard days ahead, threats from rivals, close calls that left us shaken, moral compromises that tested everything I believed about myself. But there would also be joy, laughter over breakfast, quiet evenings, reading while he worked, the fierce pride in his eyes when I walked across the stage to receive my degree, the way he held me after nightmares, his presence solid and safe even when the world felt uncertain. We built something real from the ashes of who we had been, not perfect, never that but ours. And when people asked me, and they did, always with barely concealed judgment, why I stayed with a man like Dante D'Angelo, I had my answer ready. Because he saw me when I was invisible. Because he protected me when he could have eliminated me. Because he chose a different path when it would have been easier to stay on the old one. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is let someone love you completely. Violence and gentleness and all. And I had chosen danger. I had chosen him. The dinner that started all of this had never really ended. It had simply transformed into something neither of us expected. A life built between the darkness and the light. Terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. And I would not have changed a single moment.